everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres, and I am in the greenhouse. Now, if you've been following us for a while, you saw me plant these back around, I think it was February 2nd, and we have a selection of stuff here. We have broccoli and mini broccoli and Brussels sprouts, pak choy, rutabaga, and tiara cabbage. And you can see I got pretty good germination out of all the seeds. Exactly one didn't come up, so I'll take that. But I have another tray ready today to go. I'm going to pretty much do the same thing I did over here. I'm going to change the numbers up a little bit. I started with 4 of each of the original plants, and today I'm going to do 4 of the mini broccoli, 4 of the Brussels sprouts, and then 8 cabbage, 8 pak choy, and 8 rutabagas. That has to do with how these things produce. These things, the cabbage, the pak choy, and the rutabagas, each plant is exactly one harvest. You know, you harvest a pak choy plant, and you may use it for a couple of meals, but basically it's one thing. Whereas the Jade Cross, which is the Brussels sprouts, and the Atlantis, which is mini broccoli, will produce over a while. Now, I'll make sure I get a shot of some of our stuff that's currently growing up there, so you get an idea what I'm talking about with the mini broccoli, because each plant has like a gazillion small florets about that big in diameter. Now, I don't know if they're supposed to be bigger than that or not, but this is what mine did this year, probably because of the extreme cold that we had. But I tell you what, it's really delicious, and I'm totally good with it. So I'm going to get these planted, and then I'm going to go on to this tray. Now, I have my seeds over here in the shade, which is something I always try and do, is keep things in the shade as much as possible. So we have it: mini broccoli, cabbage, pak choy, rutabaga, and Brussels sprouts. You've seen me do this before, so it's not brain surgery. I'm simply going to make a little hole. These thingies all need to be planted 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep, I think. Let's see, double check that. Quarter, 1/8 to 1/4, quarter. So we'll just go with 1/4. Let's not turn this into a major project. So Atlantis is the mini broccoli. Now, last year was the first year we ever grew mini broccoli, and we loved it. It was pretty amazing. We didn't expect it to survive even, because we had such a horrible summer, so intensely hot and incredibly dry. We never got our monsoon rains at the end of the summer, but nonetheless they still managed to produce for us, and wow, that gets my vote every time. Coyote's been running like crazy today. You see Jack looking around. He's like, "What's going on, Mom?" I was actually going to bring him out earlier today, and I left him in the yard instead for just a second because I needed to just run out here, and I did not want to risk having him outside the fence when coyotes came by. They usually stay away from us if they're actually coy dogs instead of coyotes. It could be a problem. There has been trouble on the west side of the town where we live, with people who were walking their dogs being attacked by packs of wild dogs. Now, those are wild dogs or wild dog crosses. They're not wild animals. And that's the problem. And they've talked to animal control, and animal control said, we can't do anything. They don't have people who can stand out here and try and do anything. So personally, I'd be getting my neighbors together and we'd be hunting dogs. That's one of those things I really hate to see, but sometimes people move out someplace like this and they think, oh, I will let Fluffy run free and Fluffy will just be a good doggy. Well, you know, when you get domestic dogs into a wild environment, a lot of times they become a pack, and the next thing you know, the ranchers are having to shoot them because they're pulling down calves, or they're pulling down sheep or lambs, or, you know, the whole kind of thing. It's a terrible thing, because it's really not the dog's fault, it's the person's fault. But ignorance is not bliss, as we all know. And a lot of times we get a lot of ignorance when people move out from the city and they think, oh, well, I can just let my dog run free. No, you can't. In fact, the general rule of thumb where I live, because there are quite a few ranches out here, is if you have a dog and it's running loose, if it goes anywhere near anybody's livestock, it is going to be killed. I got almost everybody done. I need to put in, this pack of cabbage was 2 seeds short, so I'll need to, I have another pack over here. All I'm doing now is I'm covering up these things a little. I have the choice at this point of leaving them the way they are, putting additional seed starting soil. This is seed starting soil. If I were a brand new gardener and I did not have any of this equipment, I would go to a big box store and buy a kit. Or if I was ordering online, like somebody from some place like Haas Tools, I would pick up a kit that includes something that looks vaguely like this. It's a bottom tray, it's the seed starting cells, and it's a cover. This is a taller cover than most people sell. This I know I bought these separately, but they're awesome. It helps to keep the stuff moist while you're trying to get things to germinate, and we actually use them at night to also help keep things safe. What I'm going to do now is I am going to go get my additional seeds, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. Then I'm going to dust the top of this with some more seed starting. I'm going to water it, seed starting soil. I'm going to water it, and then I'm going to move on to something else. And I'm also going to set up another heat mat. There is a heat mat under here. I do not need to run it during the day, but it does get run at night. This is an unheated greenhouse. We do have a heater, but it has a limited capacity. And keeping the soil at a more steady temperature really makes everything germinate. Really makes everything germinate a lot faster. And yeah, there's actually some data out there that shows that seeds can take anywhere from like 3 days to 21 days, depending on the soil temperature. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather go for the 3 than the 21. So, okay, I'm back. If you remember, we got all those seeds planted except for these 2. So I went in the house. I thought that I had enough for these, but I think it was because I changed my mind on how many seeds I was going to plant here. So I just needed to add 2 more seeds. Make a hole, poke it with your finger, cover up the seed, and that's all there is to it. It's about 1/4 inch deep, and I'm going to put a paper clip on here because I hate having seeds fall out of my seed packets. Now, what do I need to do to finish this up? I'm going to sprinkle just a tiny bit of seed starting mix on top here. I could add, because I know that some of these are not a full 1/4 inch deep, I'm not going to put much because I know that most of them are close, but I'm going to watch out for things like this. That's a piece of bark, and that will make it more difficult for the seed to come up, but I don't want that. I want the seeds to have the ability to just pop up and do their thing. Seed starting mix is supposed to be finer than regular potting soil. Sometimes it isn't, sometimes it isn't. There has been a lot of, because it's been an increase in demand, we're seeing a lot of very careless production of compost and seed starting mix from some companies. And it's not consistent. It's not like I can say that company A is crappy and company B is good. It's been inconsistent. So if you have trouble with your seed starting mix being too coarse, just screen it out. You can make a screen using 1/4 inch hardware cloth or something like that. or buy something. I have some that I bought a million years ago. And or you can just pick out the bigger stuff. I mean, if I look at a handful, this particular handful is pretty good, but if I run it through my fingers, I come up with that. I don't mind that in the bottom of a container, but I don't want it at the top where it might block a seed's ability to get the proper nutrition from the sun and the water and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want it to have to bang its head on something like that when it's trying to come out. Now you'll notice I always roll my tops and put a clip on them. If you let this stuff get bone dry, it can be a pain in you guessed where to try and get it moist again. So, now what? Well, I'm going to water it. How am I going to water it? Well, I'll tell you my favorite way. My favorite way is actually using a little garden sprayer. This is a cheapie we picked up at Harbor Freight last year. Harbor Freight gives me nothing except for temptation when I go there to play with their toys. I mean tools. Anyway, I'm just going to spray. And I'll spray each soil cell until I see it sort of start to pool on top of that soil. Now this is not going to moisturize the entire thing. This is just going to be a start. I'm going to do this multiple times every day until I'm confident that this is moist all the way through. By doing it from the top, I'm certain that the soil where the seed is actually getting damp. But I'm also going to be really paying attention to make sure that this water is getting down into there. This seed starting mix was damp to start with. It was not bone dry. If it had been bone dry, that'd be a whole different conversation I was having. It would involve preferably trying to get it wet the day before and let it sit. Now this is obviously not a huge amount of water, but it's enough for the first application. Now I see some of the bigger boys that have, like, they've got hydrants with all the water in the world attached to a well and stuff like that. And they will get in here with a fine spray nozzle and just spray it like crazy. I don't have a hydrant with a well and all that kind of good stuff. So I will do this a couple times, and I'll just make sure that every time I come out for the next several days. Now you can see the water's actually pooled on top of some of these and it hasn't soaked in. That's because there's a certain amount of hydrophobic activity going on there. That means the water actually runs off the dirt. Even in professionally made potting soils and stuff, this is something to be aware of. Now some of these individual cells it's soaking in pretty well, others it's just standing up. Now this came out of the same container. So it just goes to show you that it's your job to figure this out. It's your job to watch for the moisture. And this thing can be locked on so I don't have to hold it with my thumb all the time. But these are ready to go now. All I have to do to set this up is I'll turn it this way. I'm going to put a heat mat underneath here. Tonight I'll be covering it up for sure. I probably actually will cover it up today to help it acquire some more heat because the water's kind of cool.